Welcome back to Brothers Fab and Adventure.
Today we're going to start unboxing this 4.3 remanufactured motor from GM and putting it all together so we can put it back in the van.
We'll show you the process, which is going to involve a lot of cleaning because some of these parts are going to have to get reused and we don't want any sludge and gunk going through a brand new motor. And some things like the oil cooler lines, they're just going to get replaced because there's no way we'll ever get all that crap out of it.
So we'll show you how it goes.
We're going to go ahead and open this up and see what it looks like.
Nice strap.
Quality tie down there, GM. We were unloading this from the truck. We were sliding it down a ramp, Justin's dirt bike ramp, and I felt the whole motor slide to the front of the crate. Yep. That should have been an indicator that it wasn't real well tied down. Hopefully that's not an indicator of everything else. It's already looking a million times better. Time to hoist her out of the box and get it on the engine stand.
Now we can lower it down.
We got the core all packed up and ready to head back to GM. We just got to box the crate up and take it back to Denver.
That didn't work as expected, but there we go.
I'm just working on getting these parts cleaned up, and I figured I would show you how it started and how it's going. So this is how it started, obviously pretty grungy. And this is how it's going after one really good pass of scrubbing. Obviously, I still need to get this part of it off of here to clean underneath it, but I think I got that figured out. And obviously, there's still some oil coming off on my fingers and still a little bit of sludge built up in some corners. So it's definitely gonna get another round of cleaning, but not too bad so far. I just wanted to show you before I go ahead and clean this one up, and we have no comparison. So I've got a pretty good pass on this piece as well already that sat on top of here. And it's just these kind of O-rings here that were really stiff and stubborn, and it didn't want to come off. So now that I got that off, got a first round on that. Pretty heavy scrubbing to get all the burnt up gunk off of it, but we're getting there. It's still going to need numerous passes as well.
This is going to need a lot of work.
This is going to be a real challenge. It's going to be a lot of scrubbing. I got to take the injection system off so that I can get access to all this stuff, and hopefully we can actually get it clean enough because I'm a little concerned about that. But spider injection off, probably a pretty good starting point. Gotta keep track of all the bolts and crap. It looks like it's probably shot. That bolt is toast. Gonna need one of those. Success. After what seems like forever, we finally got all the old parts scrubbed clean and gathered all the new parts that we need. We're just going through and making sure the mating surfaces are all perfect so we get a good seal on everything. We've already chased all the bolt holes and made sure there was no old Loctite so we can get proper torque on the bolts. And we're going to go ahead and start installing the new fuel injection system that we've got here, which is an upgrade to the newer style that came on the final model of these vans. Should get rid of all the problems that the old fuel injection system was notorious for. And once we get that done, we'll get the intake put on the motor and start getting everything sealed up and reinstalled. That's definitely taking some crap off there though.
Yeah, that's some gunk.
Look at all that crap.
Yeah. Brand new, right?
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Not so much. We checked the lower intake manifold, top and bottom mating surfaces with a straight edge to make sure that there was no warping on it as well. We got the SPI to MFI spider fuel injection conversion reinstalled here. The injectors just slip in there and kind of lock into place. Pretty simple, really. We just had to install a different bracket to make the conversion work.
The only thing you got to pay attention to is routing the fuel lines because they got to go in a certain order so they don't interfere with putting the upper plenum on or get pinched or anything. We got all our surfaces cleaned up. Our O-ring is lubed up, so we're ready to put this top intake thing back on. So we'll just go ahead and slide it on real carefully. Try to wiggle her on there. That was pretty easy. And then we'll go ahead and put all the bolts in there and torque them down in two sequences. First one will be 44 and the second one will be 88.
So 44 inch-pounds, and our torque wrench is only in foot-pounds aside from this one, which we use for our pinion rotational torque measuring tool. But at least we have something that does inch-pounds because, yeah, 3.6 or something foot-pounds.
Yeah.
And ours doesn't go that low.
Last one to 44.
And then we go to 88. We got the intake partly put back together, enough so that we're ready to put it back on the motor. And so we're just fitting up the gaskets, make sure we know how they go, and add a little bit of RTV silicone around the coolant ports as the manual is telling us to do, basically, which makes sense because you don't want your coolant and your oil to mix, so a little extra safeguard is never bad. Basically, it says to do it on
the bottom side there.
Yeah. And you also need to run about 3/16 to 1/4 inch bead along here, as well as over here. Just so you know, we had spent a ton of time cleaning this plastic upper intake manifold part, and then I had done some research and read that they can get micro fractures in them and cause problems with the vacuum system, so we ended up just getting a new one anyway. So just figured I'd pass that along to you as well. Should be ready to throw the intake manifold back on any minute here. Yeah, it's got like these little pins in there. I don't know if you can see them or not.
Alright, that should be good there.
Now we're ready for the intake, huh?
Yep.
Go ahead and grab that. And our brand new bolts. We're going to give the bottom side of the intake here a quick wipe with some acetone just to make sure it's extra clean before we go ahead and seal it up.
So we took it as far as we could with our inch-pound wrench, so we are going to use the foot-pound wrench now and do the final torque to 11 foot-pounds.
Cool. It's nerve-wracking.
This one, it is nerve-wracking. So it's
such a small amount. You could ruin your bearings if you don't get it right. Oh, great. Doing your intake manifold gaskets on this motor is an easy way to ruin it if you're not conscious of what it needs. Can't just do it all haphazardly. Proper torque sequence, triple stage torque down, or you ruin the bearings of your motor. Definitely not like a 4.0. Okay.
2, 3, 4.
Good. Good. I think you're there. Yeah, you are. Final check. Don't over torque them. There you go. You're there. This is why you give it a final once over, just to be sure, because as it settles, things may not stay at what they were.
So now we're ready to put the throttle body on. So we'll just slide it right on there. And then they will get torqued down to 80 inch-pounds. Then just gonna double check them real quick and call it good.
Yeah, because some of them are kind of still turning when I'm holding it at 80.
These motors should come pre-lubed and ready to go, but it's been sitting in a crate for who knows how long, so we're gonna be safe and go through and pre-lube things like the timing chain, the upper valve train here, and then underneath we'll flip it over and lube up the cylinder walls, the crank bearings, and rod bearings, and try to get some of the wrist pins too.
A little less mess, hopefully, too.
Doubtful. Next up is installing the oil pump, so we gotta flip it over. Pump going in. There we go. Pump is in. 65 foot-pounds.
There we go. Go ahead and add a little sealant around the perimeter of the timing cover as the instructions call for, and then we'll start slapping it on. Dowels in there. Yeah. There it is.
Should be the last one to snug up, so now we'll just torque them down to 106 inch-pounds. There we go. There we go.
Now on to the oil pan. This will be kind of a convoluted process here because the oil pan has to be perfectly aligned to the bell housing of the transmission. And obviously we're sitting on an engine stand here. Hook it up to the engine hoist, take it off the engine stand, remove the plate from the engine stand, put the bell housing on, and check the final alignment to make sure that the oil pan is properly sealed. Speaking of bell housings, figured now would be a good time to give you guys that update on the transmission we said we would. 3 weeks after dropping the transmission off for bench testing, we finally heard back. They said they got it done and it was no good. Instead of trying to sell us on a rebuild, which you would think a transmission shop would do, the first thing they said is that they found a used transmission for $1,600. They didn't know what we would want to do, so we asked them what they would charge for a rebuild. Was like $2,250. So we told them we weren't sure what we wanted to do and that we were going to come and pick it up and think about it, to which they replied, well, we're going to need a couple days to get it boxed up. We thought that was kind of strange and went down to pick it up. This is what we got back. Not great. Instead of rebuilding the motor like we had planned to do to show you guys, I guess we're going to be rebuilding the transmission instead. And if you're anything like me, I'm pretty terrified of this. I've never rebuilt an automatic transmission in my life, and it seems to me that there's a lot more people that build motors than transmissions, probably for a good reason, because it seems pretty daunting. Tons of parts. We had talked about it before. You know, maybe we'd be okay rebuilding this transmission if we take it apart and get to video and see how it all went together, because honestly this video stuff, it really helps us figure out how to put things back together. We've rewatched our teardown video a couple times trying to verify the location of what sensor goes where or whatever. That would have been really handy for this, but we don't have that luxury, unfortunately, so wish us luck with that.
Now for the oil pan. Lightly on.
Oh yeah, that fun part. You gotta work the pickup screen of the oil pump into the baffle of the pan. A little bit of a invisible maze. Oh yeah, there we go. Now that we got all those bolts in there, just a little less than finger tight, we're gonna flip it over, pick it up, and put the bell housing on. So
we got the bell housing on there and all torqued down, and then the oil pan clamped to it so there's no gap, or little bit of gap, but we're at no gap. It's time to torque down the oil pan bolts. There's a sequence to these. You go 1 in the middle, 2 on the opposite side, 3,
4 to the opposite side, 5, 6 is on the opposite side,
and then 7, 8 in the back, and then you go
to the front
forward.
ones, crisscross. So, yep.
Snug this up, and then it's 15 to 20 foot-pounds, so we'll just take it to like 18 or so.
Alright, thermostat installed. Now it's time to put the water pump on. We're torquing them to 30.
30 foot-pounds.
There we have it. Water pump on.
So I oiled the seal and the harmonic balancer, so we're just going to tap it on. And then we'll suck it on the last of the way with a nut or a bolt.
Alright, cool.
All new gaskets and grommets for this. Now we're going to go ahead and throw it on here. Line up the bolts here. Maybe. There it goes. Start them by hand. Make sure they're good.
And now we're going to take it to 100 foot-pounds. 100 inch pounds. We got the gaskets for the exhaust manifolds all copper coated and on the manifolds, so it's time to install them on the block here.
So we're gonna get them snug and then go to 132 inch-pounds first, and then go to foot-pounds of 22.
And
we're gonna start in the middle and work our way out.
We made a little mistake here, and I just figured I'd let you guys know to save you the hassle, hopefully. Basically, we had put this passenger side exhaust manifold on here, and we did that before we went to put the dipstick tube in. And then afterwards, we went to put the dipstick tube in and found that it wouldn't go in because the exhaust manifold was blocking a clean access point for it. So, unfortunately, we knew we had no choice, so we took the exhaust manifold back off. The gaskets weren't in the worst shape you could ever see, but they had sat for at least 24 hours, so there was a little material that peeled on them. And since they're 30 bucks or whatever, we just figured we might as well replace them instead of risking having to deal with them in the vehicle, because that would probably suck a lot more. So we went ahead and got some of those. And also, once we got the exhaust manifold off, Justin tried to put the old dipstick tube in, and it was really tight. It didn't want to go in, probably in part because whoever remanufactured this motor got a little paint in the hole that the dipstick goes in there, so that's definitely not going to help us out at all. But at any rate, it was being really stubborn, and he was trying to use a screwdriver to help get it in, and then like a line wrench, and at any rate, it got a little bit mangled up. Not too bad that it seemed compromised, but at the same time, considering the exhaust manifold situation, we're like, well, it's another $30, and it could save us a lot of headache down the road. So we went and picked up a new one of those as well. It's been sitting in the freezer for about an hour now, so hopefully it'll shrink down and go in the hole a little easier. And we got something else that we're going to try that may assist us as well. So wish us luck. Hopefully it'll work out. Just figured we'd pass that along to save you some headache.
So we pulled this thing out of the freezer. It was in there about an hour. And now we're going to use this stuff called freeze off. Try to shrink it up a little more so it fits right into the block there. So let's give it a go.
Yeah, kind of fumey. It's not even going in at all, huh?
No, because we're like bound on this. So we were hoping the new dipstick would be our savior and just drop right in there and be easy for us. But of course not. It only went in about ½ an inch.
So we both took turns sanding it for what seemed like an eternity, basically until our hands were both going to fall off. It got it to a point that we're pretty happy with. Not fully seated, but close. So we went ahead and threw it in the freezer.
Now we're ready to take it out of the freezer. Hopefully it'll drop right in for us, maybe?
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I'll push on it while you're hammering. Now we can go ahead and get that exhaust manifold back on there.
So we're pretty happy with how the motor has turned out and how sealed up it is for now.
We're going to go ahead and bag it and move it out of the way so that we can go ahead and start organizing and assessing
the build your own transmission in a box,
which is going to be a great time, let me tell you. So stay tuned for that, but that's going to be all for this time. So thank you for watching.
Please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time on Brothers Fab and Adventure.